Welcome to the Justin Hamilton podcast. Today we are welcoming back my mate Jarrod McMaugh, who will be discussing the end of the first season of Alien Earth, a series that I thought was pretty good. It wasn't perfect, but I've enjoyed watching it week to week with you, and I've enjoyed breaking it down as well. Did it stick the landing? It did a pretty good job, but it did leave a few more questions that feel like they need to be answered. And we'll get into that in the podcast once we start discussing how we feel it landed and where it will potentially take us in the end. But, you know, for a first season, I thought it was pretty good. And even if I wasn't a big fan of all the choices, I did like that there were choices made. So I'll always err on the side of uh, something that decides it's going to go a certain route than something that tries to be a little bit too wishy-washy with what it's doing. Just before we bring Jarrod in, we'll get straight into it because there's a lot to discuss. Just a reminder for everyone up in Brisbane, you have a few days left where you can get a birthday discounted ticket for my show, Gen X Marks the Spot, which will be coming to Brisbane in early December. So if you would like to take advantage of that birthday ticket price, please head to my website, justinhamilton.com.au/gigs, and you will be able to find the link there that will give you all the details and also get you access to that cheaper ticket for the rest of September. So you've got 5 days before that little benefit is out the window. So if you're thinking of coming along, and it would be good to know. I haven't performed a solo show in Brisbane for a decade. So I'm looking forward to getting back up there, and I'm looking forward to seeing some old friends and hopefully some new friends as well. Okay, I'll jump back up at the end, but for the meantime, let's get right into discussing the finale of Alien Earth Season 1. So we finally arrive at the final episode of Alien Earth. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, how did you feel about the final episode? And how did you feel about the first season overall?
Yeah, first season overall is a great question because it's clearly set up for multiple seasons, which is great.
Yeah.
So the overall show, really great. Really enjoyed it a lot. The Maginot episode in space is definitely my
Mm,
pick. I
mm,
liked the last episode. I thought it was a little neat wrapping everybody up into that one little room, the cage at the end. But,
mm.
this is the kind of show that Noah Hawley creates, isn't it? And so the ability to just take that and say, well, we're not really tied to which narrative we're going to go with next. Where will it go? Are people going to team up? Are they going to turn on each other? Yeah, so I thought it was good. I don't think it was the strongest episode in the season, but I
No.
thought it was still good. Yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting because we talked earlier on. All the Alien movies kind of
yeah,
don't really match up. Like
right.
it's this whole universe. It feels a little bit more like feels a little bit more like a comic book universe where you could have all these different writers writing Batman, and yes, it's the continuing adventures of that character, but everyone has a different flavor.
Right.
So
That's
it,
good.
once you try to fit it all together in one continuity, it starts to do your head in a little
Yeah,
bit. So it was interesting because uh, I can't say that uh, I was really that into the aliens being used and being domesticated
right.
to a
Like
certain
attack
extent.
dogs. Yeah,
Yeah. But I did enjoy that that was a choice and it wasn't one that we'd seen before. I just kind of go back to the original film. I just like,
straight horror.
not being able to see it and it's unknowing. And
Yeah,
that's kind of what appeals to me about the xenomorph the
yeah.
most.
I'm a little cautious about Wendy's seeming abilities. So the the fact that she can tune in to the xenomorphs talking to each other, I'm fine
Mm,
with. I just take that as
mm,
being her hearing range is a little bit different. I don't really like the way it seems to be that she can project it all the way across the island. That's a little,
mm,
far-fetched in a sci-fi setting. What is far-fetched in that setting? But I like the idea that she can interact with them. I thought when the first xenomorph that she interacted with hatched out of her brother's lung, which is
mm.
just great, uh, and she started talking to it immediately. I did wonder whether that was going to put her in the position of being the queen alien, because the alien sort of within the law, they can sort of morph into whatever's needed, sort of like a bee does, right? If you've got a
Mm.
hive and you suddenly don't have a queen anymore, one of the others that could be a queen will become a queen. And maybe
Yeah.
she took that role and prevented this one from becoming that. Maybe that's why it's got the different colored carapace on the head. Maybe it was
Mm.
intended to be a different species, or probably it's just for us. We can pick out the right alien, right? But
Yeah.
so the idea that she's bonded with it, and then all of the other aliens usually bond to some degree with each other makes sense to a degree. But
Mm.
the amount of control she's had to exert on it probably isn't anywhere near what you'd really have to do, right? This is equivalent to a lion. You're not going to have some dude walking around with a lion in the middle of the street and say, no, 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 don't attack that person. It's like you have to
Yeah.
really restrain them, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah. It
interesting.
was. She almost became too powerful
Yeah,
towards the end, and uh, it you do need limitations on what characters can do,
right.
and within the construct of the series, it's interesting. I kind of felt like it could have done with another episode or two.
Yeah,
Things kind of moved just a little bit too quickly. Essie Davis' character went from being madly in love with her husband to kind of doing the dirty on him, and then
yeah.
and then didn't really do that much afterwards, apart from
Afterwards,
looking a bit sad. You didn't have any articulation of where she was at,
right.
how she felt about the ramifications of things. And it felt like uh, her character in particular just kind of dissipated as the
Served its
series wore
purpose
on.
type of thing. It's sort of
Yeah.
interesting too because the way she betrayed Arthur, I took that to be she was sort of trying to protect him, and then Adam's just like,
Mm,
"We fired," and she's like, "Well, shit, we
mm,
can't lose all this shit." So even though you're fired, if I stay, I'm still protecting our work and I'm protecting you a little bit. The other thing
mm.
is, she doesn't know he's dead. She has no clue that he's dead. She thinks he's
Yeah.
off the island, right? So
Yeah.
when our favorite character, well, my favorite character ends
Yeah.
up driving his body back into the show, she's going to freak the fuck out, which, maybe we get to see some more range out of her. But it does seem to be like she had this strong character that got her to the position that she's in, the
Yeah.
level of authority and expertise that she's got. But then as soon as her husband's out of the scene, she's sort of just collapsing, maybe realizing the ethics of what she's been doing.
Yeah.
um, the other thing I was going to say, you were mentioning it feels like it could have had an extra episode. It feels like maybe there might have been another episode plotted in, but
Mm.
the opportunity to do that in space episode, which you can't pass up. It probably took out some of the storyline that would have gone into the
Yeah.
Neverland Island.
Yeah.
So if we had the option of what we got or losing that in order to do the Neverland plot a bit better, I'd take what we got because I
Oh
love that
yeah.
episode, right?
Yeah, that was my favorite episode as well. Like,
Yeah.
I think the first two episodes were story-wise the strongest, and then that episode in particular was just a standout episode of television.
Right.
But yeah, it look, I'll never complain if a TV show has too many ideas, but it did feel like it was difficult to kind of keep the plate spinning,
Yes.
especially as we move towards that finale. And
Yes.
there were a couple of things like, we wanted to see a Kirsch Morrow confrontation, but both of them were up until that exact moment were a lot more complicated as to what their motivations were and what they were really trying to achieve. And then when it ends up being just a little bit of a punch on, and they kind of both get taken out in the process. Uh, Once again, it feels like there was some story left on the
Yeah,
table
I
there.
agree. I mean, the scene with them on the elevator was the peak scene probably in the show. Like, I really, really enjoyed that scene
Yes,
together.
yeah,
And the promise that created was great. And then,
yeah,
like, it's almost like you needed a bit of Kevin Smith in there. Let's have some like conversation before
Mm,
we get to the action, right? And
mm,
yeah, I mean, that being said, what are they going to do if they walk in on each other? Like, especially the way Morrow walked in on Kirsch, he's definitely going to turn around and just start firing. Like, he knows why he's there.
mm.
Let's make it
Yeah,
happen real quick. I did feel like, okay, it sort of felt like, oh, they're a little bit fragile, right? Except they're both extremely strong. So the ability
mm,
for Morrow to just snap Kirsch's back, probably real.
mm.
I'm anxious to know whether they've got any kind of self-repair mechanism within them at all. Like, um, is Murray going to see Kirsch jump up? Well, because they're on the same cage now, right? And
Yeah,
suddenly go at him again, or is he? No, he's there until they put him into a new body. Which knowing Kid Cavalier, that's probably never going to happen, right? He's never gonna put Kirsch into a new body. He's like, whatever, you're done with now, mate. Like, see you later.
yeah. Yeah, well, it depends on where Boy Cavalier ends. It was kind of nice to. I was glad that they didn't kill him off.
Mm,
I think him having an experience of comeuppance was great. That moment when he kind of exclaims that he pissed himself was
right.
fantastic.
I've got a new
Uh,
experience. I pissed
yeah,
myself. Right.
yeah. Like I've actually don't know what to do here. I'm actually feeling proper fear.
Right.
That was all great. I enjoyed that. I think maybe my favorite scene in this finale was when Kirsch was kind of pointing out his ADHD and trying to talk him through what he had to do next.
Right.
But yeah, I was, I love the character of Kirsch so much, and he seemed to be playing a different game. So then not having any resolution on what that game was, it feels like a missed opportunity, depending on how long it takes for this next season to come
Get
up,
through.
because it hasn't
Yeah.
been renewed. And there's a part of me that's like, I didn't enjoy this season of Severance as much, and I think it's because I'd emotionally detached in
Right.
however many years it's been between season one and two, and I did a recap to kind of catch
Get
up,
too
but it
much.
just never. I never quite found my way back in 100%.
Yeah.
So hopefully, if this next season is, this time next year, then
Yeah.
maybe that won't be too much of a criticism.
Can I ask you for your opinion? And this sort of depends on your engagement. Do you watch Andor, the Star Wars TV series?
Oh, mate.
You have? Yep. I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't want to make an assumption, right? Let's not make assumptions about each other. So
You've
Andor
missed you've
is
missed some podcast, my friend. One of my favorite
clearly
seasons of the one of them, probably my favorite. It's definitely the top tier for this
right.
season, for
It's
this
great
year.
TV, right? Regardless of it being in Star Wars, it's great TV.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm hoping for with Alien Earth is that it becomes the Andor of the Alien universe. Yeah, so
Mm.
Andor doesn't really eclipse the original three movies because all the what am I trying to say? All
The law.
the lore of the reminiscence and the all that kind of stuff. You can't sort of overcome it, despite the it's got its own little bits. This TV series is never going to eclipse the original Alien movie, but it hopefully
Mm.
sets up a strong core that gives us a
Mm.
good narrative that doesn't go too weirdly off the sides. Like, for instance, the Mandalorian. If we get back to the Star Wars era, it's
Mm.
had some good seasons that had some not so great things. So as long as they can stay online, I'm really happy for where it might go. I'm hoping that it's not too much fan service or too much. Well, let's throw in a few more weird things. One of the
Mm.
things I did like though, there's a lot of in the first time that we spoke, we talked about the Chekhov's gun, right? And there's a couple of
Mm.
things that they sort of set up, and I think these could probably be described now as Chekhov's blanks because there's a bunch of things that are just put in the show, like, oh, what's going to happen with this dude who's discovering the wall? Ends up being
Mm.
absolutely nothing. There's
Yeah.
nothing to do, and that's actually not a bad thing, right?
No.
But what I wanted to get back to with Andor, and the reason I want to go with this, there's a there's a narrative in the media, generally speaking, that if you know the fate of a character, then it's not worth watching a TV show about them. And Andor
Yeah.
demonstrates that that's absolutely not true because we do know
Mm.
exactly what happens. And so that's sort of here. Like, we can sort of get an idea that most of these characters are probably going to end up not in the longevity of the lore for too long, because you'd sort of expect to see something about Wendy. If Wendy's still around at the time of Romulus, for instance, surely that would come up. Anyway,
Mm.
regardless, I like the idea of having characters that we can assume they're going to disappear at some point in a horror franchise, but it's the growth of the character. Um, yeah. Anyway, I just don't like the way some shows are like, oh, we know this person's going to die. Why do we keep spending so much time on them? And
Right.
I've seen a little bit of narrative around that with this show as well. But I
Yeah,
really want to see that growth.
yeah, you know, knowing where a character is going to end is that's the only part that you know.
Right.
Like you know, Andor's character in Rogue One was, you know, he was a fun character. And one of the better Star Wars characters in a long time. But watching him grow from you know, someone who's all out for himself and very self-centered and a bit more of a scoundrel to giving the speech that he is giving about Luthen and that at the end of season two. Then you go back and you rewatch Rogue One, and suddenly that that movie hits so much harder than it hit
Yes.
before.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the part of the trick with this series is uh, not trying to do too much fan service, but you know, maybe there should be a scene where if we're gonna put it in the Alien timeline, maybe there should be a scene where Wayland Yutani, you know, get that first random message and then they reroute the Nostromo. You know, like
Yeah.
maybe that's something that should happen
Yeah.
because of
Even to the
ramifications of
idea,
this series.
if Yutani was just to say to her people, start searching, we want to find
Mm,
this thing again. Like
mm,
we're maybe not getting this one back. Let's start searching for where they came from, all those kind of things. I think it'd be a good thing. The idea of the end of a journey for a character has come up a little bit about Boy Cavalier, like, oh, he's served his purpose, let's just kill him off. And I'm really interested to see where they take him. But the other
mm,
comparison I was going to say is I think Wendy is about to go down the same path that Boy Cavalier has been on. So
mm.
for a long time, she's described herself as being invulnerable. She's premium, right? So
Yeah,
she's invulnerable, which is the way Boy Cavalier thinks about himself, right? He's like, well,
yeah.
I'm perfect, I'm infallible. Everybody else can piss off because I'm so great. And the final line, now we take over the world. That's why Boy Cavalier smiles, because he's like, yeah,
Mm,
you've done what I wanted to do. You're the disruptor now
yeah,
instead of me. So
yeah.
he's sort of happy that his invention is going to go off and do those things in the world. I'm interested to see where they take Wendy with that. Maybe they bring in some character flaws for her, overestimating things, making the wrong decisions, fucking shit up, which is not a bad thing for a character if they
No.
do it without making her into too much of a villain. And if they can get there, great. Let's see if she
Mm,
gets into a point where she wants to protect all humans from themselves by, taking away all their autonomy and things like that. It could be interesting to see where they go. What can I ask you? What genre do you think this is?
yeah. It feels it doesn't feel horror.
Mm,
It feels pretty much like a sci-fi,
yeah,
just straight kind of sci-fi.
great story.
Probably almost weirdly, probably almost closer to Westworld and
Yeah,
things like that.
yeah,
Um, Which, you know, once again, you know, I had a few people kind of mention that we hadn't spoken about H.R. Geiger and his, you know, origin story with this franchise. But I found this series pretty sexless in
yes,
many ways. So that's why it just never kind of came up
right.
in conversation.
Yeah, I think Mr. Tang is the closest we get to that. He's been creepy outside of the
Yeah,
cryotubes is about the closest we ever get.
yeah,
And then maybe a decision was made. We're talking about a show here where the main characters, despite being adults, are kids. And maybe
mm,
they made a decision, let's not overlap these two things too much.
yeah,
I heard a good description, for instance, the other day about 28 years later, where the young boy, I can't remember his name, in the scenes with the alpha, they had to use
mm,
prosthetics with him because he's running around with, if you've seen the movie, you know
yeah,
what his anatomy is like. And they actually had to use prosthetics to protect that child actor from that, from this particular scene. And maybe they've made a decision here that, listen, let's keep that type of the narrative that is in these movies
mm,
away from any discussions where we've got characters that are ostensibly kids. But getting back to the Westworld analogy, I think the kids here are definitely an allegory for AI. They're
mm,
like, it's new emerging technology.
yeah,
Their experience is way too little to have the kind of power that they've got, and yet
yeah.
clearly now they're going to take over. And that's, get Will Anderson watching the show and he'd be like, "That's exactly what we've got to be careful of with technology nowadays." So yeah. Anyway, but I think, yeah, the lack of the sexual violence, other than the face huggers,
Mm,
I'm okay with it not being in this
I'm
series.
fine with it as well.
Yeah,
Like I think it's probably the correct decision. And also, as we said, there's just so much already happening in the series. That it didn't quite get around
right.
to answering everything. Uh, you know, I'm fine with it not being in there. But it was just interesting that lots of people asked about it.
Yeah, yeah. It'll also be interesting to see actually. So we've got two ovomorphs left. Um, in Alien 3, they used the dog. Actually, in one version of the movie, I think they actually use a cow or a bull
Cow.
instead.
Yeah.
And so it's got a more animalistic type of layout. And so maybe we get to see a bit more of H.R. Geiger type stuff if they get those ovomorphs on other creatures. Well, maybe they get
Mm,
another sheep laying around, right?
yeah.
I keep thinking about that poor sheep right at the end when the iron ends up popping out, he just goes clock down he
Oh,
goes. It's like,
yeah, I
oh,
know.
like that was one of the best actors in the show, that sheep. His like face, the way he kept looking, just like, I'm gonna fuck you up. Like
Yeah.
such a great use of that particularly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It'd be interesting to find out with the ocular alien if, like, does that sheep have any cognitive understanding of what's happening, or is it essentially brain dead?
right.
With Arthur, he's
You
already
can't
brain
tell.
dead.
Right.
Yeah, so I knew as soon as we saw the crabs walking around on his body, I was like, that's where our guy's going
Yeah.
because there's no point in showing him like this
Right.
unless you're going to
Yeah,
pay
and
it off in some way.
they threw in the scene with the xenomorph finding him, and I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, what's that about? It didn't really seem to fit. I did like the idea of the xenomorph and the crab sort of going like,
yeah,
it's okay, we
yeah,
recognize each other. But
yeah,
you're right. As soon as they showed him again, it's like, okay, he has to come back into this. And
yeah,
how does Arthur get to stay in the show? Well, let's make him a walking this world's version of a zombie, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it's I still feel a bit sorry for Arthur. You know,
yeah.
he's
Well, he was the nicest person in the series.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can't have compassion and ethics. The scene where he's saying to the boys, "Listen, you're learning to lie," and they said,
yeah,
"Oh, you're lying again. Listen, we'll work this out," and then immediately death.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
yeah,
Walking along, holding their hands. There was something interesting as well. Once again, getting back to probably could have used one extra episode because the last episode finished on Wendy being angry at her brother, and Nibs looked like she'd had a
she's
lot more
fine.
damage done to her. And then we cut to, once again, I don't need every step along the way filled in, but it was an interesting choice to jump. And then, oh, Nibs is fine. And it was like, I wasn't sure at the end of last week if she'd been taken out or severely damaged, but all the toys were back in the box, as it
Yeah,
were. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the two lads who, they ostensibly helped murder someone. So,
yeah. I think while Wendy's in charge, I think there's no consequences for that. I think she's like,
yeah,
yeah, fair play, fair play. As far as even though it's Arthur, and Arthur is, as close as they've gotten to somebody who has shown them that level of compassion,
yeah,
they still are looking at everybody who's created them as lying to them throughout the process. Like, yes, you've given me this new body that's premium,
yeah,
but you didn't tell us all the truth all the way through. Like, why is Isaac dead and not able to be recovered? Why are we like the floor model, as Boy Cavalier describes them? And so I think she's definitely taken a position that humans are not worth saving. That's. It wasn't even the fact that Nibs might have been hurt. It was that she chose Nibs over Siberian. And I do have to
mm,
say, I really was hoping Siberian would get through.
yeah.
But also, she got to show us what the P Plumbakaram was going to be
Oh,
doing.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's just that was some really good horror. That was probably when
yeah,
getting back to the core concept of something is creeping around and stalking you, and you're in
yeah,
big trouble.
yeah.
That was a great scene.
Right. We're used to seeing little facehuggers in the background, but seeing that massive thing crawling up the wall was
Right,
genuinely one of the creepier moments in a series that had lots of creepy moments.
right.
Look, there was still lots to like about this season, and even if it didn't quite hit every beat that it sort of promised to hit. I still consider the season to be a success, and
Yeah, definitely.
I do hope that they bring it back sooner. That would be my fingers crossed bit. But it's I guess they've got a lot of things set up now, so they don't have to build too much.
Yes.
But once again, to leave off on a pretty big cliffhanger. I don't think you want longer than 18 months before the
No,
next season.
you need this turned around really quick, very, very
Yeah.
quickly. I've got a couple of questions for you to see what your thoughts are. Do you think
Mm,
the T. ocularum knew pi because it comes from a civilization that has worked out math, or
mm,
is it stealing knowledge from each person that it's gotten along the way? So, for instance, Shmuel, the engineer who was on the Maginot, he would have
yeah.
known pi, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which do you reckon? And both, I think, give us a great directive that we could go with it.
Yeah. That's interesting. I like it's pretty smart, and not only does it know pie, but it has a sense of humor.
Yes.
So that would imply that it's well ahead of everybody else. Maybe it does know, what pie is.
Yeah. Yeah, I reckon it probably does. Sort of interesting as well. So knowing that it's quite intelligent and it plans.
Yeah.
So looking at the scene where it was going after Hermit, it knew it could fit in and out of the feeding tray, and yet
Yes.
never did that. Never did that while he had Boy Cavalier in the room.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it probably couldn't get out.
Maybe. Yeah.
Like the feeding tray
You
had
get in that
opened
way, but
in.
not out again.
Yeah, yeah. But it still knew how to do that. That was
Yeah.
such a great little moment. Um, yeah, I was a bit disappointed that we didn't get to hear it at
Talk
least
yet.
communicate a little bit.
Right.
Just a little bit of talking, just to really creep us out
I don't
before.
know. I think dropping a pile of shit on the ground is pretty loudly spoken,
No,
right?
it's really funny, really funny. Um,
It's very good.
but yeah, it'll be interesting also to see if the story is confined to this island as well,
Yeah.
or if they'll take it into the real world.
Right, and that's an important point because those blood leeches are still back on New Siam, right? So
Yeah,
wherever they've gotten to, they're still
yeah,
running around in New Siam. So there's a way that they could be brought back into the show at some point, or
yeah.
what we might see has happened in the past. So once the first Alien movies came out, and there was nothing for a couple of like a decade and a half, I think, between two and three, there
Mm,
was lots of comic books. So we got plenty of space for that kind of lore to
mm,
be built out as well. I wanted to quickly touch on another thing that all of the humans in the show lose some form of their humanity in some way or other than Boy Cavalier. So Boy
mhm,
loses his sort of empire, I guess. But
yeah,
like, um, who is it? So um, Hermit loses his lung and loses his sister.
yeah,
Dame lost her husband. He lost his life and his
yeah,
eyeball in the end.
yeah,
All the Lost Boys lost their bodies. It's sort of
yeah,
interesting to get this idea that everybody at some point loses their humanity, which is sort of a theme you get in a lot of these kind of survival type of horror shows. You end up
mm,
doing shit in order to survive that you
yeah.
might not have ever done before. So it's sort of an interesting analogy for that experience as well. I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, it's thematically rich. That's
Yes.
why any kind of nitpicking is definitely on the fringes rather than uh, anything being absolutely incorrect or something's
Right.
wrong with the DNA, as it were. Um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. What do you have any ideas of where you think it will go, or do you have ideas of where you would like it to go?
I so there's pretty much every one of the species still exists, so he's still got the ability to go in deeper into any of them.
Mm,
I will say this actually. We mentioned earlier, where did they all come from? Did they come from the same place? The fact that
mm,
the flies are being described as coming from an environment where all they could eat is minerals probably means
mm,
they were on different planets, or maybe one was on the moon. But anyway, so they've got a way to just to explore the different creatures and see them all
mm.
in use. But I think what we're going to see here, clearly Yutani's on the way.
Yeah,
They're going to come in and there's going to be a lot of action for a couple of episodes, but things have to escape. Things
yeah,
have to escape off the island in order to take the narrative out into a further area. Otherwise, there's what's the risk, right?
yeah.
We have to have some level of risk for the audience to be interested in watching the show in the first place. So I think that Hermit um, and Wendy might end up leaving the island, but probably towards the end of the next series if they don't do it
Mm,
right at the start. But I reckon some of the Lost Boys might go out quicker. And surely we're going to lose another Lost Boy or two in the next season as well, because there has to be a level of risk for them. Otherwise,
Yeah.
what's the point? I reckon that Yutani is just going to, what do they call it? Hostile takeover of Prodigy.
Mm.
She's going to take
Yeah.
it. She's going to take it all down, and you know, what gets put out to that world's public is probably just a merger. We've had this merger and everything is
Mm.
in, but she's going to come in and take over because Whale Yutani still exists. So,
Yeah.
um, but we'll get to see a fair bit of action with the two xenomorphs now
Mm.
laying waste through the soldiers. One thing I do find interesting is that they haven't show that these xenomorphs are very violent, but they don't actually show the violence directly. It's always like
Mm.
here's a big splash of blood and here's the bodies
Yeah.
afterwards. Not
Yeah.
as much of the actual like face huggers. Oh, sorry, face hugger. Like the secondary jaw through the skull and or
Yeah.
through the back of somebody's head. All those kind of things. So he's got a lot of space to get more grotesque with it if
Mm.
he wants to do that. But I guess the overall audience is going to determine how grotesque he can get with it as well. But I think as far as the storyline is concerned, I think what I'd really like to see is for Morrow and Kirsch to have to work together. I
Mm.
think that would be interesting if they're put in that scenario. I want to see Cavalier come through and have to demonstrate his intelligence to us, right? I want him to do
Mm.
stuff that shows that, yeah, he really is smart and he can get out of these kind of scenarios because both intelligence and how slippery he is and how he's an anarchist, right? So
Mm.
I want to see that kind of narrative as well, but I'm not really sure where I want to see Wendy go in the end because I think they've probably made her a little bit too overpowered and there
Yeah.
needs to be some failure there. And maybe that means that Hermit's sacrifice, he dies somewhere through it for her to realize,
Yeah.
oh shit, I'm not just able to get through any scenario that I please. Um,
Yeah.
and it is interesting that her ability to control shit
Yeah.
linked to Prodigy's network,
Yeah.
which probably brings to the point that I should raise. What did you think about Adam turning out to be a synth?
Uh, it kind of wasn't a big surprise. There's always been something a bit
Stiff.
strange about him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess I thought it was like a cool moment, but it would have been nice if there was when did Wendy realize? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I could have done with a beat of her sort of looking at him suddenly and realizing something and then,
Yeah.
stopping him there.
I think that's a
But it
fair
was
point because
cool.
sorry, yeah,
No, I was just saying it was a cool moment.
yeah, her abilities would have meant that she must have known he was on the network,
Yeah.
and therefore being shocked by his ability to throw him into the wall, is good for the audience. We needed to know. We need to have some cue. Oh shit, he's actually super strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I think it would have made more sense if there was something that Wendy had demonstrated that she knew what was going on. But I thought it was quite interesting. It does raise again why his name is Atom Mines then. So that sort of gives an idea that that's the first one that he made.
Yeah.
This is the one that killed his father and then became his father figure for a period of
Yeah.
time. And those faces that are on the wall that are in Cavalier's office are probably his faces that get changed in and out from time to time, so
Yeah.
that people
Yeah.
don't say,
Upgrade.
how come you've got this person who doesn't seem to age hanging around your life?
Yeah.
Um, there is this bit of a theme where synths are not necessarily known to the people around them and to the
Mm.
audience as well. So
Mm.
Mr. Tang, for instance, I was convinced he was an android right from the start because of the way they talked about him and the way he acted,
Yeah.
but he's not. And Adam Irons turns out to be when there wasn't really a clue to that all the way through, except looking back and it's like, yeah, of course. But leading up to the point, it was like, oh yeah, okay, it makes sense,
Yeah.
but it's not a shocking thing. So it is interesting to see the way they've leaned into that, and that is very consistent with the way Ash was on the Nostromo. They didn't know that he was one,
Yeah.
but it flips once they get to Bishop, where it's like, well, now everybody has to tell you that they're a synth and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like soon everything with AI will have to have a little stamp on it to let you know what you're watching is
right.
bullshit.
Yeah, well, YouTube
Um,
started doing that. YouTube has started doing that now. They put a
yeah,
stamp on videos to say this is either AI derived or AI assisted,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's that's what we're starting to see with these synths in the alien universe. Um, yeah, it'll be interesting going into this next season. I'd like to see more of the other corporations and
Yes.
get a sense of what's going on with the rest of the world. So, uh, if it's a hostile takeover, how do the other corporations react to it? I'm like you as well. I'd like to see Boy Cavalier with his back against the wall and how he gets out of that because I think he can.
Right.
I wonder if Wendy's weakness will be that she's a young person who lacks experience with all these abilities to do stuff. So maybe hubris will be her
Yes.
big flaw going forward. I really enjoyed seeing the alien in daylight. I thought that
Yes.
was a nice, once again, I know I said that I like him in the shadows and hiding that, but if you're going to give me something different, I like that it was visually something that I had not seen before.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see if, maybe that baby one will go off and turn into a queen and start laying eggs or something along those lines. But I'm keen to get back into it
Yes.
ASAP.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm hoping there's not a big gap. We needed this. We need it connected again as rapidly
yeah.
as possible. Um, and in this kind of world where you can't just turn things around very quickly, it'd be lovely to see a movie in the gap, right? If they're not
Mm,
already in production,
mm,
let's could they go into a movie instead and do some big um, action movie like Aliens was to show
mm.
the attack between the two. But ideally, what I prefer to see is were already actually in production, but they've indicated, I think, that they were waiting to see how this one went before they did that. So
Yeah.
it's
I
a bit
think
of a
it's done
shame.
pretty well. I think it's been
Yeah. Yes, it has.
getting good numbers ratings wise. I think it shouldn't be afraid to. So I'm watching Task at the moment, which is
Right.
3 episodes in, and that series is a masterclass in not stretching out storylines.
Okay.
Like it kind of moves at a pretty quick pace, and because of the decisions it makes, it means that instead of thinking, oh, well, we've done this storyline, it means you're moving the story into different places. And I hope that's kind of what they do with this next season. If they set some things up, don't be afraid to sort them out 3 episodes
Right.
in and then see what stories that generates from there.
Right. Yeah, I think that's because they did that with this one, right? They got right to the action. They were at Xenomorphs
Mm,
real quick. They didn't
mm,
they didn't pull any punches. And so that if they did that with the second season where they basically wrap up the majority of the questions from season one very
mm,
rapidly and then expand out into new storylines, great. I'd be
mm,
very happy to see that approach. I think that's a good way to do. I also think that um I think Babu Sise is probably my favorite actor in the show. He's done such
mm.
an amazing job.
Yeah.
Uh, even his character, if he has to die early on to get us a nice big, culmination into something that's like, oh no, we've lost, the best character. I'm happy if they do it in a really good way,
Mm,
because I want to see more of him, but I also want to see him sort of have to defend himself from one of these xenomorphs as well. Like
yeah.
he's got the tools to be able to do it, and
Yeah.
he's now going to say, well, I don't care that they ignored you last time. We're going to get them after you.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of good places for this to go. What's We should finish up. What are you going to be watching now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I have been looking at Task. So you're the first person I've heard describe in a good way. Most of the people that I get my recommendations from haven't watched it yet because it's not really within their area of interest. But it is something that I am probably going to check out. It sort of keeps coming up on HBO Max, and I'm like, oh, I think it's HBO Max. Anyway, it keeps coming
Yeah,
up wherever I'm watching, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I should check it out because it looks pretty good. And I do like the actors who are in it. Mark Ruffalo is
yeah.
good in a. I mean, he's good in a superhero movie, but he's good in non-superhero roles.
Yeah, it's been the role that I needed to see him in because everything's been just a bit too elevated for they're the choices that he makes, but it's good to see him playing a grounded character dealing with real. issues, as it were.
Yeah. Have you seen? I can't remember the name of the movie, so bear with me. There's a movie that he did, and it was about the Catholic Church in Boston. Have you
Oh,
seen?
Spotlight. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And
It's
so,
this
is
it's
it
this era's All the President's Men.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you feel that his acting in this one is like that movie?
No, no,
Okay.
no. It's completely different. It's a
Okay.
completely different character. It's without giving anything away, there's a lot playing on this character
Okay.
before the story even begins.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. All right.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Now I'm gonna get into it. I watched Sinners for the first time this week because I've got little kids. I don't get to go to the cinema the way that I'd like to, and that was really great. It gets me feeling like let's watch some more vampire movies. That movie does a great job of selling the case for let's just become vampires, right? Because it
Yeah,
seems like
yeah,
Stacks at the end of that movie is like he's living a great life. Why don't we
yeah,
just want to go and do this shit? So yeah, it's
yeah.
sort of a really great movie. I really like the way in that movie that was like we're gonna have to overcome these vampires, but while we're at it though, let's get rid of the clan while we're at it. Like just at the end,
Oh yeah,
let's take
yeah.
the opportunity and fuck them up
It
too.
was
It's great.
great. It
Yeah,
felt like a real reward from Coogler to sort of say, "Hey, I've given you this high genre stuff, but how good would it be just to watch Michael B. Jordan with a
right,
machine gun
right.
mowing down racists?" It's like really good. It's
Yes,
really good.
let's have that.
Thank you for rewarding me. I've greatly appreciated this. Yeah, I that'll be one of my top films
Yeah,
of the year, especially because it makes some big choices and
yes,
it follows through with them. And uh, you know, I've spoken to a few people who didn't really enjoy the film, but every time you speak to them, they have no inkling of the history of the
right.
blues. They have no idea about Robert Johnson selling his soul down at the crossroads. Uh, it's a movie that rewards digging into, I
Right.
think, if
And
you don't know stuff.
yeah, and I can imagine that if somebody sort of isn't already liking the show, the scene where they show the musicians from the past and the future, they would just be
Yeah,
like, what the fuck is going on? But I was watching that going, this is amazing. Like, this is
yeah.
so interesting the way they did that. Um, the other one that I'm going to be watching, so I watched Superman the other day.
Mm,
I've avoided DC for a while. I'm not a fan of the Snyder or any of the stuff that sort of happened in that sort of era of DC.
yeah,
But I watched it the other day and I was like, yes, this is what we've been waiting for this kind of comic book movie, right? It's got consequence, but it's also light and it's
yeah,
interesting and it's funny. So because I enjoyed that and I know that they've sort of done some tinkering around the edges, I'm going to go back and do Peacemaker. I've not watched any Peacemaker at all.
right,
And
yeah,
and I know that at the end of the first season, they've taken out the Snyderverse
yeah,
Justice League, and they
yeah,
put instead the Justice Gang. Gang, is that right? What do they call
yeah,
themselves?
yeah,
And so yeah, I'll check it out again. I always liked his like the way he can do humor and seriousness, and
yeah,
as an actor, John Cena. Like there's that. I can't remember the movie that he's in, but he plays a drug dealer in some movie, and he's just got everything in there, and it's hilarious, especially
yeah,
given my background with medicines and things like that. But I think
yeah.
it's the one show from the Snyder era that I've sort of looked at and I thought I really would like to watch it, but I don't want it tainted by that sort of the tone that's in the Snyderverse. But now that they're going to go back, I'm like, all right, cool, I'll go check it out and
Well,
see
it's
what it's
kind
like.
of funny. You could go back and watch the Suicide Squad that James Gunn did, and he's already, that already feels removed from that
Okay,
grim dark era. All the Snyderverse stuff and all this grim and dark and gritty superhero stuff. Uh, Once again, it's like the wrong lessons were learned in the 80s. The Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen and that they were satirical,
right,
and there was humor in them. And then comics went, oh well, these are being taken seriously, we need to emulate them. And then they make these really dark
right.
storylines which are, they're kind of teenage angst. That's what
You're right.
you know.
Well,
And then this is what happened with the Dark Knight trilogy, where they're like, oh, we have to go dark, and it's like those movies have heaps of jokes. Like
right,
they're funny. Like there's gags all the way through those
right.
movies. It's just
Watch me
it's
make this person
operatic.
disappear. That kind of
Yeah,
thing.
it's like it's great, but it's operatic. It's not
Right.
it's not grimdark, and I'm hoping now we're coming through to. That's what I liked about that film. It embraced the silliness of that universe while keeping a straight line that you could follow emotionally, and it's just a fun film, which is
Yeah,
a
I think I
nice
really
thing to
enjoyed it.
experience.
I think the only it's not a negative, but the only thing that I would say that about the Superman movie is that it felt like there could have been a little bit more metahuman population sort of going on in the background as well. Like for instance, when they showed the fight in the background with that fifth dimensional imp, maybe there could
Mm,
have just been some other superheroes doing that one as well. I felt like they could have fleshed out a little bit more with a bit more metahumans around. But other than that, I think it did the job really well. I was going to say one other thing that I really like the Robert Pattinson Batman, right? And I can't
yeah,
remember the director, so shame
Matt
on me if not
Reeves.
remember. There you go. But the Penguin series, I also haven't touched into yet, and it looks fantastic. Have you got any opinions on
Yeah.
that one?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
thought it was fun. Uh, Two powerhouse performances in it that really make it quite propulsive, and it ends in a way that you kind of get to and go, oh yeah, yeah, this is how it always had to end.
Okay. Okay, great. I might check that out really soon as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, there's been a few theories around that I've just seen and I thought, yeah, I really should get to it, but I'm just not feeling it yet. But
Mm.
I think as far as DC is concerned, I'm enjoying the idea of getting back to it. My peak Batman is the animated series, as
Oh
weird as that
yeah,
sounds.
yeah,
I didn't have the resources as a kid to have the comic books,
yeah.
and I'm avoiding getting back into comic books. So I've always had the animated series was sort of my peak, and I liked the original Batman movies when they came out, but they got by the time of Schumacher it was a little bit it's a bit too much by now. But yeah, I'll definitely get back into those. I think DC areas I think will be good to watch now. Yeah.
Well, they seem to have more of an idea of what they want to do, and James Gunn has said, he won't make a movie until the script is finished, which is seems like such an outrageous thing to say
Right.
because you think, well, of course he wouldn't start making a movie until the script is finished. But as we are hearing on Avengers Doomsday, the people still don't know if they're in it yet or not.
Right. Right. And so I don't disagree. I think it's a good thing. Do we even know what the next Gunniverse DC movie is going to be?
Well, it was meant to be the Supergirl movie that
Okay.
was
Yeah.
based on a Tom King graphic novel, which is pretty fun.
Okay.
And there's also meant to be a horror movie about Clayface from the
Okay.
Batman mythos.
I can
So,
I can do with
and
that.
and
Okay.
then there's meant to be the next. He's working on the next Superman movie, Man
Okay.
of Tomorrow. So that seems to be the plan.
Yeah. I'd love to see something like Red Sun. You just couldn't do it with the right continuity, right? Do you know Red Sun? The when
Yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
The
yeah,
Mark
yeah.
Miller
Yeah.
series. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Um,
would be an amazing one to do, but yeah, you couldn't do it like unless they started getting into multiverses again, which we know people are losing. People are losing a bit of patience, I guess, with the idea of the multiverse because it makes people feel like, well, is there any skin in the game for this movie?
yeah,
Does it even
yeah.
matter? Which is a shame because let's just enjoy it on its own, right? Yeah,
Yeah, well, Marvel just did such a bad job of it that
yeah,
it's funny. It's everything everywhere all at once. Every universe that they were in had stakes for that universe,
right.
like the universe where it was almost like the two lead characters were in the movie in the mood for love, and you know, he has kind of like the most romantic moment in the movie where he says, "If I'd lived in a universe where you were just cleaning laundry, I would, and I was with you, I would accept that universe."
Right.
Uh, so even when they're dumbass rocks talking to each other, there's still
Yeah,
stakes.
that movie
But
did it so well, and I think
yeah,
Loki did it really well. But you're right, most of the multiverse stuff that they've done requires too much back knowledge of the comic books,
mm,
and even then, like people have got expectations, and it's just not heading in the right direction for what everybody wants, and it's hard to please
mm,
everybody. So it does need to be reeled in a little bit more, and just let it be a bit more organic for a while. You know,
yeah, and finish the fucking screenplay before you start filming.
right? Yeah,
That that would
that
be my
sounds
thing.
such a radical idea.
Radical. All right. Hey, thank you very much for joining
Thank
me
you
today.
again.
We'll have to find our next thing to discuss.
Fantastic. Sounds great.
Thanks to Jared for joining me to discuss the finale of this series. It's been great chatting with him about it and throwing some ideas around. And hopefully, we'll find another TV series that we can both sink our teeth into. Um, in the meantime, you know what? I'll do a couple of podcasts next week. I saw the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie, One Battle After Another, and I have. A lot to discuss with that. I loved it. I just thought it was great. But there's also some TV shows that I've started. So maybe we'll do some one-on-one stuff next week, and I'll get you up to date with some TV shows that you might be interested in, and also give you an idea of what I thought of this new PTA movie. Look, I just saw it the other night, so it's potentially got a little bit of recency bias, but it's definitely one of my favorite Leonardo DiCaprio performances. Maybe my favorite. I'm not sure if it is that. I'll have to let it settle and I'll have to see it a couple more times. But damn, I really loved it. So we'll discuss that in upcoming episodes. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, at the start of the show, I reminded people in Brisbane that you can get cheaper tickets to my solo show, Gen X Marks the Spot. So if you'd like to get on top of that, you've got 5 days to take advantage of those cheaper tickets. Uh, if you're in Newcastle, it's the 26th today that we're recording this. I'm in Newcastle tonight and tomorrow night hosting. So if you would like to come down and say hello, please do so. I'll be there tonight and tomorrow night. What else? There's a new Substack edition of One Foot in the Spotlight going up. We're talking now about the influences on the young Justin Hamilton. The first part of this little triptych started going right back to me as a kid, and now it's the teenage influences, which will lead into the third part of this little triptych, which will be the heavy influence that someone had on me from a suggestion to becoming a friend that I worked with in the present day. So that will round out this little part of this story that I'm telling, this memoir that I'm recounting. So you can find all of that over at my Substack. Of course, if you're listening to this, you can watch this on YouTube as well. And if you like more audio, there's been a new live show that's gone up at my Patreon. It is Stuff and Nonsense. So there's now a few live shows that you can access through Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/Justin Hamilton, you can either buy those episodes or those shows separately, or if you'd like to sign up and have access to all sorts of different podcasts and live events and stuff like that, you can find a tier that suits you. Okay, I better get on with editing this and putting it all together for you. So, thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this run through the Alien Earth universe. Tell me what you think. Hopefully, we'll see more in the future. I don't think they should ignore Prometheus. They always talk about how the technology looks different in Prometheus to the Alien movies, but it's like, yeah, the technology in Prometheus is the rich people's technology. And the technology we see in Alien and Aliens is the grunts technology. That's how I've always fitted them together. So I think you can bring those worlds in as well. Why not? Try and make them all fit in. See what you can do. Okay, you guys have been great. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Until then.